Live, live, live. It is Friday and it is time to fill your pipeline. Everyone, let's jump in the chat. Say hi, your name, what is one thing you want to get from today or a goal for your pipeline, and where are you from? Let's see. You guys ready to go and discuss some social selling today? This is probably one of the things that I've seen change and grow the most. And it's really interesting how it has evolved from when I started selling to even in the last 6 months to 2 years, how much it has evolved. Come on, everybody. You want to get in the chat and let me know what you're thinking? We'll have another 30 seconds and then I actually put a presentation together today. Instead of going through in our normal examples, I'm going to try something different. Close a couple tabs. Okay. Good morning. Happy Friday. I'm your host, Nicholas Thickett. Today, we're going to be talking about filling your pipeline with LinkedIn. LinkedIn has become one of my favorite tools. As you'll see when I go through this today, it is not the only tool, but it was one of the critical tools that allowed me to build a billion-dollar pipeline personally in 2014, 2015 when the whole market was crashing because it gave me insight that I couldn't get from the phone book. And that's what they made me use. So we'll go into my presentation here. But the thing is, what can you do so that it's sustainable? Because 30 minutes a day is probably the most that most people have. And I know that when you get busy doing your different activities, managing your pipeline, that was what I found was kind of the best for me. Now, why did I get started on LinkedIn? Hey, Izzy, thanks for jumping in the chat. Why did I get started on LinkedIn? And you guys, why did you get started on LinkedIn? Throw it in the chat. What was your push to get started? I know a lot of people was employers. They said that they had to, maybe they had to push their stupid marketing that we know doesn't work. Or maybe a lot of people just used it to start getting jobs. I know that's kind of how it started for me. But the real reason that I started using LinkedIn is the phone stopped working. Not completely, but it just didn't have the effectiveness. You know, if it used to be here, then it became here, and then it just kept dropping and dropping. And so when I first started, they threw the phone book in front of us and said, get dialing. You know, you're going to love this. It's the greatest thing you could possibly imagine. You can call anyone. So just start dialing. And we all probably know how that went. It didn't. And I used to always track my numbers to understand what was working and what wasn't. And it used to take me about 40 to 50 calls to go and get someone on the line. And I usually had about a 50-50 chance if that went somewhere. And it started to really slip. And I was getting well over 100. And I was like, I got to change something so that when I do get them on the phone, that it's better. And so what I started to use LinkedIn for was credibility. Because what I realized is when I did call someone, so many people were jumping onto Google and searching. Who are you? Can I trust you? Do I like you? Are you competent to go and actually talk to me about this matter? And so originally LinkedIn was my way of showcasing that I knew what I was talking about. And that was kind of it. But then it started to grow and grow and grow to a point where it actually started to do more business than anything else for me, but it is not the end all be all. I still use it with calling and emailing. But when I was in investment banking, what I found is I used to use it to schedule my days. And then actually using Tim Ferriss's 17 questions to challenge everything, I started actually using after work, so 5 to 9, to actually get a hold of people that normally gatekeepers are in front of. But that's really unsustainable. And now we don't need to do that because of the access we have with social media, in particular LinkedIn. This is the one thing you need to know. And this is the one thing that got really highlighted in all of these experiences is you can't move faster than the speed of trust. Nobody cares about your product. Nobody cares about your brand unless it instills trust. They either trust you They trust the product or service that somebody recommended, so referral based, that's why referrals still do so well, or they trust your company. No, they've heard of GE, they've heard of Google, they've heard of LinkedIn, they've heard of these companies, so it adds that little bit of credibility that opens the door, but it doesn't do all the work for you. And this is why LinkedIn has become so powerful over the years that it's just really enhancing everything. Thanks, Izzy. Yeah, it's this is your currency that we all live on right now is trust. And social media has just done that so well. And if you look at if anybody goes to Izzy's profile, Isabella Bedoya, you'll see how Izzy really pushed that trust and had posts that went viral by playing the game well. And what is the game? Well, the game is social selling. And I get this here. A lot of people get this mixed up all the time. Well, social selling, what is it? They're like, well, it's just selling on social media. No, because we go back to the last slide. It's about trust. So really, social selling is about engagement in public that earns conversations in private. Engagement in public earns conversations in private. This is why DM spamming and all the crap that a lot of people are doing with automation right now fails miserably and does more harm than good. Because people don't want to buy what you want to sell. People want to buy what others want to buy because we're pack animals. We don't want to be first. We want to be first to be second. And that's why, like, even these shows previously, why they did so well and they got us so much business, plus our guides that we sold, is because people got to see that we actually knew what we were talking about. Izzy, you're so sweet. Thank you very much. But think about this whole game, social selling, being engagement in public earns conversations in private. Think about that as we're going through this, because I'm going to be giving you some routines that only take you about 30 minutes a day, less or more. It just really depends on you. But the key is not doing everything. So there's really three types of social sellers. And maybe I'll jump on LinkedIn and show you a few. But they go by all different names. I've just always called them the reelers, the evangelists, and a newer one that I've changed, I just call it Godin's gift because I love Seth Godin. But what these are is the reelers are the people that pull people back to their profile. So they're either commenting, sending blank connection requests, sending personalized connection requests. They're getting in front of people so people come back to figure out what they're about. That's why I call them reelers, because it's like trolling in the ocean. You're reeling something in so that they get to see your full profile and they get to go through that experience. And with any luck, we get better at catering that experience so they walk through. This is the most popular because companies actually like it. A lot of companies are still out of their mind when they think that social selling doesn't work or it's a waste of time. But with the reelers, when it's done well, you can actually capture all that intent so people see what that looks like. This is how I made my living. Jacob Tuner has done a really good job of this. Izzy, you've done a very good job of this. But if you look at a lot of the people you probably follow on LinkedIn, this is how they started. And then more often than not, I see them evolve into evangelists. And what evangelists are really just those community people that pull people together. And I guess I kind of became that after a while. And with Morgan, when we ran these shows and we built these group around us that we were really trying to support everyone and learn together. And Riley Blaisdell is one of the most incredible evangelists I've ever seen when of pulling people together. But you think about those people that they have a community in their comments, that they're building other people up. They're looking at the problems they can solve and they're sharing it with everyone around them. And what they're trying to do is build a platform in which they're sharing and helping. Those are the evangelists. They're the community advocates. They're the people that are out there getting it done, but on a bigger scale. Jen Allen did this incredibly, incredibly well, especially with leveraging Challenger in the podcast and then also her own personal content. Incredible job. Izzy, you did an incredible job of this too with when you changed your content. But I would actually almost put Izzy you into Godin's gift. So when Seth Godin originally was starting out in his career, he actually worked for, I can't remember if it was which newspaper. I don't think it was, I think it was the New Yorker. And he had this brilliant way of looking at it. And what he said is, how could I make this so good that someone's going to cut this out of the newspaper, photocopy it, and give it to everyone? How do I do that? How do I create something that good? And so what he did is kept that, and he kept iterating and he kept rewriting. So it was so good that everyone had to share it. That's Godin's gift. It's like perfect inbound. And Hanley does an incredible job of this. Izzy, you did this with your posts and some of the assets that you created, where people want to share it because it's something they just don't have and they want to go and give back by spreading that out amongst everyone. I put it last because it's the hardest one. It takes the most work, and I don't see a lot of people do it well, even though they try. I definitely tried, and it's something that I wasn't naturally good at. It took a lot of time and a lot of practice, and it's something I think you never perfect. It's just always a work in progress. And this is the three different ones. The problem that you'll find is if you try to do all three, you'll easily burn 4 hours a day. Because writing at Godin's Gift, that snackable content that everybody wants to share, is not easy or quick. Like it's going to take 3, 4, 5 iterations and edits. You're going to have to get other people's point of view. It takes a lot of work. You can't just sit down in 30 minutes and do it. The community evangelist, you can, but not if you're trying to write content on top of that. But if you're just grabbing content from your group and sharing it, it works. The reelers, you have to set yourself up differently because you're going to have different sales navigator lists. You're going to be following different hashtags. Pick one is my best recommendation, and we'll talk about it more later on the specifics, but just keep in mind which one you want to be. In the chat, what type of social seller do you want to be? Okay. So this is probably, and anybody that's heard me before is going to laugh that I'm even talking about this, but probably the most common question I get asked is, so how do I spark conversations that turn into opportunities? And there's 1,000 different ways to slice this, but I have found three that just consistently work for me. And using like Will Allred from Lavender's messaging statement, what he does is, what did you see? What was the observation? Add in why does it matter? Why do you care? Why did it stand out to you? Soft call to action, interested. That's how this all started, was just using something very similar to that. But what I realized is that if people don't see the world the way you do, especially like the problems that we're solving, they don't want to talk to you ever or at all. So it doesn't matter how fancy your messaging is, doesn't matter how good your product is, it's irrelevant. They do not care. Relevance is key. And what I found more often than not is passion is where this really stands out. And this is where Sales Navigator searches can be really great, because if you know what account you want to go after, who wants to nerd out on the same things as you? I'm an audiophile. I love music. So a lot of time I'll connect with people on music, or podcasters. I'll talk to them about the journey because we all make some of the similar mistakes and we all go along somewhat similar paths. So we can nerd out on it and we never get bored of talking about it. I love beer, which you guys have probably heard me say maybe a few thousand times, but easy way to get my attention is to start nerding out with me on beer. But because people a lot of the time hide corporately from what matters to them, and there's only a little small little breadcrumbs that they hide in their profiles or in their content, they don't expect people to do it. And when people do reach out in that way, they instantly gravitate towards it. The key is trying to translate it something that's not a bait and switch, that's not dishonest. So if I said, hey Izzy, I see that you're really all in on automation. Do you think AI will ever replace human judgment? That's how I would start that conversation, because what I want to know, the reason why I'm starting with passion is, do you see the world the way I do? Because if you don't, then the things I see as problems, you won't. And it's kind of the same thing as people trying to sell you religion at the door. It doesn't work because you're not in a place where you want to hear it, and it doesn't align with how you think. So passion is a great way to transition. The hard part is practicing that transition on how you want to do that. Like if I started with beer and I said, lambics are the best beer in the world, wouldn't you agree? It's really hard to then switch to, yeah, and how can I go and help, how can I go and sell you the best IT provider? It doesn't translate, so it doesn't work. So you have to really think about how you're shifting from something that's incredibly important to them and how that importance plays out in their everyday life. The next one is progress. So people love to know that they're moving ahead, and it actually works a little bit better than pain. It's about a 5 to 1 right now. When the things are going really, really well, then you can actually lead with pain. But when the world is a little bit more negative, you have to lead with progress. So, how have they made progress? Well, most of the time, how I would see this is they would list progress as congratulations on your funding, congratulations on, you know, your first management position. But everybody's saying that, so it doesn't stand out. So think about it. If you were trying to go and start a conversation based on progress, what would stand out? Well, going back to the example that I used with Izzy, they're talking about when Chat GPT 5 is going to be available and how all the different uses are going to come out. Do you think it's actually going to make a difference, or is it all hype? So you're looking at the progress and you're trying to go and take that same example that I started with is, what did you see? Why does it matter? Ask a question, because all we're trying to do is start a conversation and allow that conversation to flow. So we're finding common ground, the race to commonality. It could be progress, could be, it's crazy that you guys just raised capital in this market. It's going to be interesting to see how that works for you guys with all of the frustration that we see with the layoffs and everything. Um, what do you think is going to be your biggest investment? What do you think is going to be your biggest challenge? What doors do you think that's going to open for you? And you just got to go and play. It's that give and take, and you're learning as you go. And this is why I always recommend writing things down and trying to look when something works really well, try to go and reflect on it and figure out why. So I always lead with progress. So all I do is I typically take my pain and I flip it into something positive. And what are signs of the positive? So like another one could be, so say that I'm seeing on Sales Navigator that they have a 15% drop in salespeople. And I'll say, progress. It is incredible how many people you are hiring in this environment. What's your secret? It seems like everybody's struggling to get talent right now. So there might be an underlying pain that'll come out as I have this conversation to see if this person sees it the way I do. But I'm actually going to go and compliment them on what's working, because that feels nice as a human being. But if somebody walks up to you and says, I can't believe how shitty you're doing right now and how people are leaving you so quickly, like, man, that must feel awful to be that bad. Nobody in their right mind would respond to that. They're just going to think you're an asshole. But if we switch it to progress, then it allows them to open and reflect, and you can have a conversation to see if that progress is coming from something deeper. And the last one, as we all know, is pain. I really like using pain in a challenger-esque way, but what I've tried to do differently is I try to go and play the detective, the doctor, and the best friend. The detective is I'm trying to find clues to those unstoppable market forces that are causing pain. And think of them like smaller symptoms to a much bigger problem. So if revenue is an issue, how does that bubble up? How can I see it from far away without having to talk to them? And then all I'm doing when I'm messaging about pain is I'm trying to see who sees it and how bad do they think it is. You guys just went and hired performance marketer. It's really interesting. I don't normally see people hire this role at, your guys' size of company. What was the push? Why not branding? And I might not get a bite, but the thing is when you start talking to enough people that live in the pain, not above the fault line, the people that are living in that frustration every day, it's really high impact and it's really frequent. If you nail the pain, they'll talk because they want help, because it's their passion, their profession that they want to improve. And so what you're trying to do is not nail the goal from the company standpoint, is you want to really nail the pain as it affects the story they tell themselves. Hey Jade, thanks for jumping in. So how does that story change? So if I'm in sales, I might be thinking that I'm really struggling to go and sell in this environment, but really, maybe I don't know that. Maybe my company doesn't have a really good idea of who we sell to. Maybe the product versus competitors isn't as good. Maybe the pricing's a little bit off. But what we got to do is tease out that pain in a way that's not confrontational to understand how it changes the story they tell themselves. So passion is all about finding out what you can nerd out on and never get bored of talking about, to see the world the same way. So that same mental model. Progress is all about looking at how they're making positive strides forward and how they might be missing something or how they're seeing the world, because companies only invest in priority 1 and 2. Pretty much everything else doesn't matter. And pain is understanding where the problems are bubbling up in these companies so that we can start those genuine conversations and get a feel of how it's showing up. This is kind of even where we'll find our investment formula. And you guys may have heard me talk about it before. I try to always find 3 numbers, and I really look at, okay, what are these 3 numbers I can influence realistically that will actually make this investment worthwhile? And kind of give you an idea. In good times, it's 3 to 5 times. In bad times, like now, cost of capital is high, hard to find good people. It's about 8 to 10 times. And if you go to B2B value and Google it, HBR did a really good one. Maybe I'll throw it in next time, but something to take a look at. What do you guys think when it comes to staying top of mind? How do we not get lost in the abyss? How do we still stay relevant with so many more people posting content, with so many more companies investing into social, so many more companies promoting their stuff on the in the people's minds that maybe we don't have live in the same world they do, like a VP of sales or a CFO? How do we stay top of mind for someone like that? Any ideas? This is one I struggled with for a really, really long time. And I kept thinking about pretty much every single way that I could possibly go about this. And it wasn't till long, long after that I realized what I needed to look at was actually much simpler. And so I started looking at these 4. So you'll see, even starting at number 4, exclusive perks. You see a lot of influencers, a lot of creators that they'll do, here's a freebie, a coupon for just my members, just my followers. So they'll do something exclusive to make you feel like you're an insider. That'll also go back into the content and the events, the learning opportunities, and the ways that we connect. But the thing that a lot of people don't know about content and conversations on LinkedIn is when you direct message somebody, DMs, LinkedIn sees that you guys obviously like each other's content, and they'll actually bump it up in feed. So if you're regularly talking to someone in the DMs and you want to go and stay top of mind, well, as you're posting content, it'll actually bump that content up. And so you'll be top of feed, which then is top of mind. And so the way I've always liked it is if I'm doing a passion or something that's indirect, but I'm generally trying to get to know the person, I'm posting this content that's more direct, that is really helping them change the way they see the world, rethink how a problem, like how big a problem actually is, because they're only looking at a symptom, not the root cause. And I really ask, what would this person need to know for them to either buy or book a meeting with me? Because that problem they just can't afford to miss. And so think of that like your air cover. That's the content you're posting. Conversations, all you're doing is you're just being a good human being, showing them that you understand, showing them that you care, trust and credibility. And you just keep doing that over and over. Exclusive perks could be something that you build in your community. Maybe I went and worked with Jade and I worked with him on a startup program, or maybe I worked with Izzy to go and create like an AI prompt handbook for sellers. Well, that could be exclusive just to you guys. And it's just something that you would just have to be part of these weekly workshops go and get. And then events and webinars are really fun. And I can't, my only, how do I say this? One of my biggest regrets was not starting my podcast sooner. As a seller, it was the most crazy, I don't even know how to, like, it was just so unbelievable that it was like somebody just opened the door and it just stayed open. Everybody that I wanted to possibly talk to wanted to talk to me. It didn't matter how big, how small. If I had something worthy and they were the right person to talk to, they always wanted to talk on the podcast. And it just opened so many doors for me. And same with doing the power hours previously and other workshops and webinars with people, is that people already had trust and credibility in the market. And by working with them, I got trust and credibility from their audience. And it just had this magnifying effect that just carried, and it was almost like compound interest. And the more consistently I did it over time, the more it paid off. And so it kept me top of mind. It also was a great way to reel people in because I wanted to help them and I wanted to help them give them value right away so I could invite them to the power hours, or I can now invite them to these workshops. And so because I'm constantly giving value and I'm constantly proving what I can do, it works really well. So just think about your mix and how you want to apply this. Whether you're going back to being a reeler, like what we talked about, you want to bring it to your community as an evangelist, or maybe you want to go and do it as an inbound, like Godin's gift type world, where you're giving back through really detailed, really thorough content. Nate Nasrallah is incredible at that. Okay. And of course, which follows is, so how do we keep track? This has to be one of the hardest pieces of the puzzle. And what I find too often in my career, what I failed at is I got taught to force people into pipeline and then fight their excuses for why they didn't want to buy. And I got taught BANT, budget authority needs timeline. And what I didn't really understand back then is that budget and authority don't matter unless you have needs and timeline. You never have a budget unless it's timely, unless it's priority 1 or 2. And so to do that, you have to really rethink the way you track. So I'll show you what's worked really well for me. So kind of going back to even last week's workshop, talking about how using messaging to do sales-led research is I try to pick a segment. What is a group of people that all have a very similar problem? I can't remember if it was 2 years ago or if it was a year and a half ago. I did a study. It took me over 2 years to complete, and I reviewed over 100 CRMs. And I looked at what was the difference the way the top elite sellers were using Sales Navigator versus the bottom. So the top 1% in sales versus the bottom 20% in sales. So what I noticed is the top were using about somewhere between 8 and 12 in the low end, up to 20 different filters to get laser focused that the people they were talking to were the same types of people so they could have the same types of conversations and learn. The bottom 20% were using 4: headcount, revenue, industry, and geography. Generic crap that doesn't do anything. It didn't get them to anything that is meaningful. That's why automation is killing, because most people are just using those 4 things. And then what you need to do is prioritize. So if you have this generic list of accounts, say you have 200, how do you find the smallest list you possibly can of, say, 5, 10, maybe max 20 that all have a burning problem that is top of mind and is priority 1 or 2? Look at how they're spending their time and money. They're using their resources. That's all a business is that they're reinvesting money to make money, hoping to get a positive return. So if I have a segment, so say it's SaaS companies that are growing sales headcount by more than 10%, just hired a new leader to go and change the bad revenue that they've had over the last little while. Say that's kind of my starting point, that they've hired more than 10 people in the last month and are looking to keep hiring in the next month. So I can prioritize them because they're spending money to hire people. They're spending money on the problem. But what most people miss when we talk about building this list is intent. What I got taught to do is throw them into a list and chase them forever. But what I missed was, if they haven't invested time or they haven't invested money, then I'm being an idiot. I'm wasting my energy on something that never put energy into me. So if their intent, and they're already solving it in their own way, but they're not coming to these shows, they're not consuming my content, they're not investing money to be in my workshops or buy products or buy other potential solutions, there's no real intent to solve it. Therefore, me chasing them, I am just a burden. I'm just going to get in the way of what they're trying to do. And what that actually leads into is a champion of change. And why I include number 4 in all of this is I realized that it's kind of a weird predicament where I got to actually see someone go through a pretrial motion through courts. And it hit me how much sales is like going to court. But what we all miss is, if there's no champion of change, no one to sell it internally, it fails every time. So nothing actually becomes in pipeline until we have a pretrial. We're pitching someone that has the ability, the authority, the internal credibility to carry this across the finish line. Until then, it's not real. It's all just people kind of doing their own thing. And there's always someone trying to improve, but we can't put big money to a big problem unless there's someone to go and point out the big problem. So that's why I use these Sales Navigator lists. I have a master list, a segment list that groups similar people. I prioritize them based on actions they're actually taking. And then until they show me intent, like they're looking at my profile, they're messaging me, they're downloading content, they're viewing, like going part of like different experiences, or I'm talking to a champion of change, that's how I invest my energy. And this allows me to spend a lot more time with the people that are looking to move. And I'll tell you right now, my average for champion of change, so if I have somebody in number 4 that I've tested that champion, they're ready to go, that my sales cycle is substantially shorter because they're so much further in the process. I would say you're probably somewhere between 60 and 80% done, depending on how big of a solution you're trying to solve. So I just challenge you, whether it's in Google or Sales Nav, have a list, and it doesn't matter which of those social selling plays you're doing. This is super helpful to make sure you're spending your time where it needs to, where you get the best bang for your buck. So we went through a lot, and I think it's only fair to open it up to Q&A. So Izzy, Jade, anyone else, when it comes to social selling and only investing 30 minutes a day to get the best bang for your buck, to get more clients, What questions do you have that hopefully I can answer for you? Anyone? Meanwhile, I'm gonna have some coffee. I almost feel like we need some music, guys. Let's see. I know they used to. Restream used to go and have music. Let's see if they do. Put some on for the background for us. Oh, they got rid of it. Well, that's disappointing. Unless they moved it somewhere else. Oh, maybe they moved it. I'll have to try that another time. Okay, Izzy asks, let's see if it'll pull up here. Where do you draw the line between asking a question that sparks conversation versus coming off as salesy? Okay. So this is a fantastic question. And the one that I always ask myself with this, Izzy, is who am I focusing on, me or them? And the reason why I really like to ask that question is something becomes salesy when it's not about them. You're just using them to get something out of them. So it's like I used to have a cousin, well, I still do, but let's not go there, that only called me when they needed something. That was the only reason they ever called me. They never asked how I was. They didn't care about my life. I was just a tool for them to use when they needed it. And I was unfortunately too stupid to notice it at the time. And so then I stopped answering their calls. So when our prospects, clients, friends feel like we're being taken advantage of or that it's not genuine, that's salesy because you don't actually care about them and they can feel it. Where the line is on the other side is when you're trying to find a win-win and you're trying to ask questions to get to know them, to build an understanding, to understand the company, not to directly transact. There's no immediate gratification that you're looking for. You know, think of it, this is kind of like dating. You're trying to go and understand how they see the world. You're trying to see if you mesh. And if you go through and take that into mind, that's why I really love these other approaches with the content, Izzy, because if you're posting content and something that you say in that content, you know, strikes a nerve or gets their attention, all you've done is had good conversations to stay top of mind, and then your content sold them. And this is why you got to think about it in layers instead of just one piece, or else it is salesy. Um, Izzy, does that answer your question? Ah, this is a good one. So I'm going to pull this up. Jade says, I agree with everything that you said. You and I have been very close and have many conversations on this. In my opinion, you have to be authentic. And if you're not authentic and honest, no one is going to do business with you. As much as we think the world is a big place, it's true. Like, I can't tell you how many times me and Jade, if you go and look at Jade on LinkedIn, we're in different worlds and we overlap, yet our names come up quite a bit. And it's really interesting how that comes to be, yet it's a big world. And I can be in, one time I was in Dallas, Texas, when Jade came up about the startup ecosystem because of Platform Calgary and some of the different things that he's doing. And then he also threw in something else. I want to read this as well. Same philosophy goes into when I'm investing in the company. I really have to trust the founder and believe in them or in their vision before I ever move to the next level. And this is so true, Jade. Thank you for throwing this in. But this is kind of what we're doing. Not kind of. This is what we're doing when we're selling into especially bigger companies is we're trying to find the people we can believe in, that see the world we do, that believe in our mission, that win-win, that true win-win. We are together and we're going in the same direction. Because without them and without that trust, it falls apart. And this is why I say you can't move faster than the speed of trust. These are the people. So it doesn't matter how many times you follow up with someone, you're wasting your time. Try to talk to different people in the company until you find someone that sees the world the way you do, that you truly connect with on a deeper level. Because even when things get crappy or things get hard, they will keep doing the work because it's not about them getting a promotion, about them looking good. It's something that they believe is fundamentally wrong that pisses them off so much that they will go to bat to see it happen, and they'll even put their name on the line to support you because it means something to them. Think about that philosophy. Think about the things that you truly believe in, and think of the things like whether it's ethical or like values that you will never compromise on. And I guarantee you, you could find a couple little words, topics, things that you could actually connect with people on, going back to that slide previously, which I'll go back to for you guys. That's where the whole passion piece, right? This passion, progress, and pain. That's how we spark conversation. So if we go and find ways that we can mentally connect with people so much deeper on these things to go and actually feel like they see the world the way we do, we found our people. This is when selling becomes fun. And this is when it works a lot better. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Thank you for the great questions and the really great comments. Honestly, guys, Jade, Izzy, it's because of people like you, and I know I've told you guys before that I love doing these, but you know, it's until we start voicing our opinions and we start seeing things from different angles and challenge the way it's always been done that things start to work. And that's honestly what happened in my career too, is there's been little moments, and I will be honest, it's been the ones that I learned through absolute utter pain that have stuck with me. Like the one executive calling me out because I was just doing a volume approach. He said, "You didn't do any research before you called me." And yet I had him on the phone. And I failed because I only knew about product. I didn't know anything about their situation. These things matter. So if we don't have any more questions, then I will do a quick summary and I will give you guys back some time in the day. I'll watch the chat. So going back to this, I'll even go back further. You can't move faster than the speed of trust. What we need to do is you got to find those people in those companies that think like you do, or at least see the problem or a possible solution the way that you do. When you do that, you only have a few different ways to go and do it easily. But remember, engagement in public earns conversations in private. So you got to decide, do you want to be a reeler, an evangelist, or Godin's gift to the world and produce that content that goes viral and everyone shares? Most popular is the reeler. Find ways by sending out connection requests, commenting on feeds, getting in influencers' posts, get attention so that they come back, they learn about you, they read your content, and they buy in. Evangelists are just doing that on such a bigger scale because they have that community in the comments. They are constantly finding people that think the way they do, and they're collecting those people. And they're building a system around it, a value, a group. And then Godin's gift is just challenging the world through content. Think about which one you want to do and just plan for 30 minutes and then set your activities accordingly. If you're doing Godin's gift, you should be spending 30 minutes writing, and maybe it's 10 minutes writing and 20 minutes editing. Evangelist, you should be going out and talking to people, get in the DMs, comment on posts, show up, show you understand, continue the conversations. Reelers, you could be looking at how many people do you reel back to look at your profile? How many people are joining in on your webinars? And then how are you changing those conversations to get opportunities? Are you leading with passion, progress, or pain? What I like to do, and actually maybe I could work with Izzy on this, but use ChatGPT or an AI and create 10 different prompts that you could test and then just find the one that works best for you. And just remember, passion is like how can you nerd out on something? Progress, how can you celebrate the wins? And pain, how can you find the people that see the same problems that you do? Stay top of mind by posting content regularly, having those conversations, do events, webinars, something additional for people to look forward to. So you're showing up on a regular basis. And where you can, do exclusive perks. Like I'm gonna go and try to do some more workbooks for you guys because I know you guys, I got a lot of great feedback on that. And then just keep track of everything and practice in how you do this. This is what's worked best for me. And I just use a lead list in Sales Navigator. That's it. I used to use Google, and when I used Google Sheets, all I would do is copy and paste their profile URL, and I would just have their names, and I would put them into where they were in that list, and that's how I did it. Kept it simple, and then what I would do every day when I was reeling, social selling, is I would work backwards. I would start with my champions of change, go to people that showed intent, and then I would start engaging people that I had prioritized. That way, I was rewarding the people that had invested in me, or I knew the timing was right to talk to them. And really, guys, that's it. My goal is to host a weekly workshop every Friday at 11 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Pacific, or 1 p.m. Eastern, and just keep hitting on these things you tell me are really big problems that drive you nuts. So if there's something you'd like me to cover next week, throw it in the chat. If not, in about an hour and a half to 2 hours, I'll be scheduling the next one, same time. So put it in your calendar and follow me for more. And if you have any feedback, please get in the comments or send me a DM. And those, have been a fan of the show for a while, you'll recognize this part, but it is 2024. It is no longer acceptable to suffer in silence. If you need help, reach out, whether it's in the comments, get in the DMs, reach out. There's people that are going through the same shit you're going through, and there's people that want to help. And worst case scenario, I can point you to the right person. You don't have to buy anything. You just got to take the brave step to ask. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jade, Izzy, and everyone else that joined us today. I look forward to seeing more people in the chat, and can't wait to see you guys next week. Take care and have a great weekend and happy Easter. Bye-bye.